Spectrum News 1 presents the LA Times Envelope Roundtable, brought to you by the Amazon original movie Being the Ricardos for awards consideration.
Hello and welcome to the LA Times Envelope Roundtable Actresses. I'm your host, Amy Kaufman from the LA Times. Today, we're joined by 6 of the most creative minds in entertainment. Let's take a look at the films that brought them here today. Penelope Cruz appears in Parallel Mothers, the tale of a new mom who works through family and personal tragedies. Kirsten Dunst must contend with a cruel brother-in-law in The Power of the Dog, a Western in which she portrays a newlywed who doesn't quite fit into her husband's new family. Lady Gaga plays Patrizia Reggiani in House of Gucci, the true story of an Italian woman's stormy marriage to the head of the Gucci fashion house. Jennifer Hudson is Aretha Franklin in Respect, which follows the legendary singer from her church origins through alcoholism to global superstardom. Kristen Stewart takes on the part of Princess Diana in Spencer, a portrayal of the royal in the fragile final days before she left the Prince of Wales. And Tessa Thompson stars in Passing, a 1920s story of a Black woman whose close friend is passing through New York society as a white woman. Hey everyone, thank you so much for joining us today. First of all, where's everyone talking to me from? Are any of you actually in your own homes right now?
I am.
Oh, okay.
Texas.
Gaga, are you in a hotel for your Vegas residency right now?
Yeah, I'm in Las Vegas right now in a hotel. I did a jazz show last night and I have one tonight too, so I'm here.
I wanted to start off with you, Gaga. I have heard that you spent 6 months training to do your Italian accent in House of Gucci, and then you actually practiced it, like lived it out for 6 months following that. Is that true? How did everyone know you were just walking around talking in an Italian accent?
Yes, I spoke in my accent every day because it was important to me that the accent didn't drive the story or the acting. And I wanted to make sure that I was able to really emote and feel through each scene. The arc of the character was very much that she was trying so hard to transgress society and become something more than she was. And her accent was a part of that.
Do you want to be left in the dust? You want to keep selling coffee mugs in airports? Is that your legacy? It's time to take out the trash.
So yes, my process was very much, how do I get so inside of the accent that I can just completely forget about it and then do all the work of the script analysis so that when I get to set, I can throw all of that out the window and just be in the moment. Wow,
that's extremely immersive. Kristen, did you take a different approach with Spencer playing Princess Diana? Because you have to do a very, an accent that everyone's familiar with.
I didn't live in it when I was not on set. I did have, luckily enough, time to sort of incorporate it into my own muscularity. It wasn't something that I was overtly distracted by on set. I've done accents that have distracted me and have not done well. It didn't turn out well. The time is so necessary. For me, I needed to be as kind of live wire spontaneous as I possibly could, because she feels like, in all of my research, I feel like when she walks into a room, it just feels like the ground starts shaking. There's this tenuous, precarious, broken energy that is also contagious and sort of buzzy. So I luckily, I kind of relied on my coach, who was really more than a dialect coach, like such a beautiful acting coach.
Mummy, why do we have to open our presents on Christmas Eve? Why not Christmas Day like everybody else?
At school you do tenses.
Yeah.
It's the past, the present, future.
Right.
Well, here, there is only one tense. There is no future. Past and the present are the same thing.
I feel like because I had the 5 to 4 months leading up to shooting, that even though I didn't maintain the accent in between takes, even, or nor did I do it over the weekend. Like I kind of have this feeling like I feel fairly absurd unless the time is now. You know what I mean? It's like we are doing this thing, we are on camera, and so slightly different approach, but I still feel like I needed it to be in my body to the extent that I didn't have to fixate on it.
That makes sense. Jennifer, obviously you play someone who many people were familiar with as well as Aretha Franklin, and you've talked a lot about how she personally requested that you play her, which is, I can't imagine like what an honor that is, but also so much pressure. Like, were you just thinking all the time like, oh, she wanted this, she has a certain expectation for how it's gonna be?
Those things couldn't help but to go through my mind. Even now, I still sit with it like, did I do everything? Did I miss anything? And I took piano for my portrayal of her, which I started like 3 years ago, and I still do it, so it's like it's kind of bled over into, I guess, my artistry in a way. But the thing that makes it adds the pressure even more with playing somebody so iconic is feeling like being given an assignment to do it by her, but at the same time, it's what gave me the encouragement to be able to get through it while filming when it actually happened, like, okay, if she said I can do this, then I can do it,
This song goes out to anyone who's ever felt mistreated.
You said that you think you realized later the reason that she chose you was because you both shared like a similar understanding of grief. Is that really why you think, she felt you were the right person to do this?
I think it played a huge part in that. Like before then, I, assumed it was like, oh, Jennifer sings and acts. So of course, Jennifer, to play me. But it wasn't until while filming some of the heavy scenes and then learning more about her that I was like, wow, this goes beyond that. And she saw so much more in me that paralleled to her than I did in myself at the time, while we were speaking before filming. And a lot of things didn't register to me to actually being in those moments. So I feel like, in some ways it had something to do with it, yes.
Penelope, this is your 8th movie with Pedro Almodovar, right? Like that's a lot of track record and history with someone.
Yeah, he's actually like a family member for me. We met when I was 18. That's when he called me the first time, but he told me I should go home because I was too young. And then he called me for the next one, and now we've done like 8 movies together, and it's such an incredible experience every time, because even if we are so close, we are like the brother and sister, we really, without planning it, we have created a healthy distance with each other when we are on set. It's like a completely different relationship than when we are hanging out as friends.
Penelope, I'm curious, do you develop things together? Like, do you speak when he has like a seed of an idea?
He tells me he's always writing like 3 or 4 things at the same time. And he told me about this movie, Parallel Mothers, when we were doing press for All About My Mother in New York. Yeah. He was already writing this, and then he stopped. And then when we were during COVID, like in total lockdown in Madrid, he called me from home and said, I'm writing this, and I'm writing thinking about you. And of course, it was like such great news to have that on the horizon. Like, we didn't know if it was going to be 3 years from that day or 5 or 1. We had no idea.
Sí.
Arturo, soy Janice. ¿Estás en Madrid?
Sí, pasado.
¿Puedes venir, por favor?
Penelope, in Parallel Mothers, your character, she makes some questionable ethical decisions. And so what was your thinking about how you reconciled, the actions of your character? And did you think about what your own personal take would be if you were in that situation?
It was so hard for me to confront that. I didn't want to ask myself that question of what would I have done? Would I have spoken earlier? Would I have said the truth? Never, later than her, before? And Pedro never asked me either. We didn't talk about it. We rehearsed for 5 months and we never talked about this.
About your personal opinion?
about what would I have done in that situation, or what would he have done in that situation. I couldn't. I just knew, like, being so fortunate to have 5 months with him rehearsing, something started to happen on a cellular level, where if we were rehearsing with props and I had the doll instead of the real baby, when they came to me to take the doll away at the end of the day, I would have a crazy reaction, like a crazy lioness. Do not touch this toy, this doll. And I didn't realize until a friend told me that I was doing a lot of strange things like that we don't understand that can happen. So I felt, okay, this is enough. I don't want to judge her. I don't want to question if it's right or wrong.
Mi amor, yo te quiero mucho, ¿eh? Te lloro, bonita.
It's such a moral dilemma what she goes through that I don't care. I just have to go with her, because I actually realized months later, actually when I saw the film finish, that I would have done exactly the same. Exactly the same. It was like total survival mode. She had to become a professional liar in life, the best possible liar. She was an orphan. She had nothing. And this time, she says, this family, nobody's going to take it away from me, no matter what. And again, it's like this huge threat. I cannot say what happens.
Yeah, I know. I'm like, right.
That horrible threat of, you might lose this baby again. You might lose this family. Maybe you will never be able to have one. And she's like, no way. But she's a good person, and she has this great relationship with Anna, with the other girl, who gave birth the same day at the same hospital, and now their lives are attached to each other forever in very strange ways. So yeah, she had to. What I love so much about the character is that I had to all the permission and the freedom to be a great liar in life. I don't know why, but I enjoyed it a lot.
And you also, Penelope, have worked with your husband, Javier Bardem, who has a movie out as well right now. And Kirsten, you're in The Power of the Dog with your husband, Jesse Plemons. Tell me about working with your husbands. Like, what are the upsides? What are the downsides of that?
I like it, but I couldn't do it every year or every, I don't know. Once in a while is okay, but last time we played together, he was playing Pablo Escobar. And not last time, the one before last, he was Pablo Escobar and I was Virginia Vallejo, and I could not stand him. I could not look at him in that week. That I had to leave Colombia ASAP. It was really hard. We survived that. I think probably that means we'll be together.
Amazing.
That's funny.
I love working with Jesse. He's my favorite to work with, so.
Don't think. 1, 2, 3, to the side. 1, 2, 3, and back. 1, 2, 3. Told you I'd teach you.
We fell in love creatively first. So we plan to like do something together maybe every, I don't know, like 5 years or something. Just because we enjoy
See, that's what I meant. Every 5 years,
put it out.
That's fun. Yeah, you can't. I imagine doing it all the time would be intense. Like, you need a little break.
But honestly, on the movie we did together, we don't really have that many scenes together. And it was just nice with playing a character like Rose to have somebody to have lunch with. You know what I mean? Because you're usually alone in your trailer. So it was nice just to lay down in our little costumes in our bed together, like trying not to mess up our costumes or our hair and makeup, but like just having a little nap next to each other. We had a break or something. It was
Kirsten,
nice.
There's something trippy about, when you know somebody personally, or just when you have a kind of a relationship with their work and maybe you haven't met them before. I think people that have been working for a long time, you bring their whole history to like whatever characters they play, even though obviously we try and disappear and lose ourselves to a certain extent in these parts. When I watched you and Jesse, even before you guys wound up together, which obviously in the beginning you don't know that that's necessarily going to happen, I was like so emotional watching that. And even if I didn't know you, I think I would be. It's, you know what I mean? Like, you guys were so sweet in that. I'm so glad nothing like terrible happened between you two, because I was like, where is this going? It's so, you guys are so beautiful standing next to each other on that mountain. Like, come stand
On that
next to me.
mountaintop. It's so funny. I didn't know we were together, and I watching it was like, they are so cute together.
So
That's really cute. I wish I could show you the baby that's in the other room right now. He's so
Can
cute.
you just bring it? I want to see.
I will when we finish, maybe, because you'll hear him, because we're in a very tiny house, so you'll hear him cry if he wakes up.
Tessa, I want to ask you a little bit about Passing, because, you know, that is a film that's set many decades in the past, and I think there's a temptation at first when you hear what it's about for people to be like, oh, like that's not a relevant topic anymore. Can you talk about the relevance of the film's themes to today, and how familiar were you with them?
I had never read the book. I got sent the Rebecca Hall screenplay with the novella, and I read the novella first and was haunted by it, and then immediately read Rebecca's screenplay, and I was blown away by the adaptation. The book was written in 1929. It's a really slim, it's 93 pages, but so much happens in the interior life of this woman, Irene, who I play. And I think Nella Larson brilliantly uses the idea of passing in terms of race as a metaphor for the ways in which we all pass. This idea that the sort of version of ourselves that we project out into the world doesn't always line up so squarely with who we are. This idea that we perform, that we put on masks because we want, or society tells us we need to sort of fit inside of this box. And the truth is, when we are the fullest expressions of self, we're like bound to spill out the sides. And this woman, Irene, is someone that was just so sort of repressed by the ideas of what she needs to be. She's performing, some would say, reading the novel, she's performing heterosexuality, she's performing happiness inside of domesticity, she's performing this idea of what it is to be a woman, a Black woman. And inside, she is sort of unraveling, because those performances aren't really who she is. And that was the thing that I found so interesting about the book. And as an actor, something I found really challenging is, and like delicious, is this idea of how do you both not show for someone that is so sort of repressed and measured, and also show enough that the audience gets a sense that there's all of these things underneath.
Things aren't always what they seem, Hugh.
Bobby Dan.
Nobody could tell from looking at her.
No. Most surprising. Tell me, can you always tell the difference?
Oh, now you really are sounding ignorant.
No, I mean it. It's feelings of kinship or something like that.
Hugh, stop talking to me like you're writing a piece for the National Geographic. I can tell same as you. But I suppose sometimes there is a thing that can't be registered.
Yes, I understand what you mean. Yet, lots of people pass all the time.
It's easy for a Negro to pass for white. I'm not sure it'd be so simple for a white person to pass for colored.
Never thought of that.
No, Hugh. Why should you?
Yeah, and it was just such a dream to work with Rebecca Hall, who I've just loved her work as an actor for so long. And this piece was really personal to her as she was exploring her own history and her family of passing. She found out her grandfather was like a whole Black man who didn't live as one. And so her, mom inherited passing in this way. And so she sort of she was exorcising all of these ideas after she read the novella. She immediately wrote the screenplay in 10 days and then refined it over a decade. But it was incredible to work on something that was, yes, source material, but for Rebecca was also deeply personal and an exploration for her.
We have to take a break, but stay tuned for more with these fantastic actresses.
Being the Ricardos is nominated for 3 Critics' Choice Awards.
Now we're cooking with gas.
Including Best Actress Nicole Kidman.
I need you to help me save my marriage.
Best Supporting Actor J.K. Simmons.
Are you drunk?
It's 10 a.m., Vivian, so, of course.
And Best Original Screenplay Aaron Sorkin.
Let that be the best thing I ever wrote.
Nah, still Vitamita Vegemin.
Being the Ricardos. Rated R. For your consideration.
Welcome back. We have 6 amazing actresses here with us today. I was gonna ask you, Gaga, I know you know the woman you play, Patrizia Reggiani, she served 18 years in prison and recently got out. And I read that I think she used some choice. She was like, I was rather annoyed that Gaga did not reach out to me. She seems like she has a very strong personality. She's gonna voice her opinion, but did you consider reaching out to her? Were you just like, no, I want my own interpretation to be, unsullied by her opinion?
I considered reaching out to her, but I ultimately decided after watching lots of interviews that she gave, I believe I've watched anything and everything that this woman has ever done on camera. And I started to get good, I believe, at knowing when she was lying, which was a lot. I think she really wanted the people in the world that knew of her to see her as this very sort of powerful, notorious force, and that this murder of Maurizio Gucci was something that she should be glorified for.
Who is making this stuff? Who's allowing this to happen?
As far as fakes go, they're pretty good. I'd buy them.
Don't be such a cretin.
My experience with reading all the exposition that I did, because most of what you read about Patrizia happens after 1995, after the death of Maurizio, after he was murdered. I had to really dig to find her before then and create her youth. And in doing so, I made the decision to be a journalist in the way that I approach this character and work backwards, and then take moments throughout her life that happened, their marriage, the child. She has a baby with Maurizio. Maurizio is then left half of Gucci. What does it mean for a woman to try to gain power by having a baby? All these sort of landmarks throughout her life. So to answer your question in a very long way, I decided not to meet her because I didn't believe she was telling the truth, and I didn't believe she would tell me the truth. And I didn't believe that I would be able to play the character in a way that even felt true to my heart, which is I didn't want to collude with somebody that put a hit out on her husband. And one of the saddest things I think about the film, which has an interesting tone, is that in some ways, at the end of the film, she's seated in the same place that she is at the beginning. And I, as a woman, look at her and I think to myself, why did she even try? Why did she even try to be great? Why did she even try to matter? Because ultimately, the system dismantled her. And she actually elected to stay in prison longer than they even wanted her to, because she didn't want to have to work. So no, I didn't want to meet Patrizia, but it's because I wanted to decide for myself why this happened.
Kirsten and Jennifer, both of you, in The Power of the Dog and Respect, have really harrowing scenes where you both have to act inebriated, and it's they're heart-wrenching scenes. And I always hear actors talk about how playing drunk is extremely difficult, and I can imagine why, because you don't want to seem over the top, and yet you don't want to, I don't even know how you would approach it. So can you talk about those scenes and what you did do when you were thinking about acting that way?
Oh, wow. Well, it was difficult for me. First, I've never had a drink in my life. So it's like, what do you draw from? for those moments. I have to give the credit to my acting coach, Leland Thompson, who helped me get to that place. And then there's a few scenes acting with Forrest Whitaker where I was like, is he really drunk? Like, what's happening? And learning from him as I went along. It is a scene where Aretha falls off the stage in the middle of a performance. And for that scene, he said, Jennifer, spin around in a circle to be able to help create, the drunkenness. When I say we shot all day and I was dizzy all day, and then I had to sing in the midst of that. That to me was probably the even bigger challenge. It's like, how do you, stumble in song, and how do I unlearn the songs that I already know so well, just being a fan.
Kirsten, I saw you shaking your head at the spinning around thing. Is that like a trick everyone uses?
It's a great trick. And Allison Janney taught me that trick on Drop Dead Gorgeous because I had to be out of it during a scene. And she's like, just spin a bunch in a circle. And I was like, oh, yes, this works great. Yeah. So I have to say, whenever I have to feel off balance or stumbly, I am spinning until like I have to go on camera. I spin like it's a joke. It's a joke how much I spin.
That's exactly what I
and it makes it even worse if you close your eyes when you spin too. But then for the scene where I had to be really drunk, I just honestly would pay attention to people that were drunk a lot more and just watch them more. Like, how does my mom tell a story when she's been drinking too much? Or how does my friend? And for Rose, she kind of got like this little girl because she's talking about this memory of like school days. So in a way, it was like being a little girl, in a sense. So, and then drunk people that are telling a story always make sure they don't sound drunk too.
Right, yeah, that part.
Does anyone ever, do you ever drink the prop drinks and actually feel drunk even though they're not real? I do.
Mm-hmm. What's the prop drinks? Just like water? Like what's in there?
Yeah, no, like they would give me fake martinis. No, they weren't, but I kept drinking them.
Though always has alcohol on it. Right.
Kristen, in Spencer, you wear like the chicest outfits, a lot of Chanel, which I know you in your actual life have like a relationship with. But then today, like I see you in a t-shirt and you're pretty casual, I think, off screen. Like, do you like dressing up? Like, was that a fun process in the movie to really turn it out?
Yeah, Diana's clothes are such a sort of separate entity that they're kind of constantly telling their own story and going through every picture and all the sort of footage that we have from her. Her lines of communication were so sullied and complicated. And so when she couldn't articulate how she felt and she couldn't be straightforward about what was going on internally, I always felt like she was reaching out from behind these cloaks, which were stunning, gorgeous gowns sometimes, or sometimes she felt like she looked dressed up by other people and maybe she wasn't having the best day and she kind of like, I always felt like it looked cooler when she looked more awkward because she just was kind of like jutting out of the clothes like some kid that was dressed up and they didn't like it and they were like pulling their dress over their head. And there's this picture of her sleeping in a theater and just stunning. She looks like she's the frosting on a cupcake. She just looks so perfect, but like so diminished and actually asleep. So actually not even there. Literally, she had checked out for that moment. So even just the way that Pablo is so preciously obsessed with textures and colors and the kind of narrative that can comprise in and of itself, it was really fun to be within that and have those clothes bolster you, because sometimes wardrobe feels like wardrobe and it feels not real because they don't have time to make it. You don't need to have that pocket work as whatever women are used to that experience because our pockets never work. They were so beautiful. There were times where I felt, I'm 5'5". This woman is like almost 5'11". Like there were times I felt just as tall as her. There were times that I felt just as much of a shadow, even though I was wearing these beautiful clothes. And it was kind of the closest I've ever gotten to like the big time. It felt like I was in a big, huge movie. Like as it looks like from the outside, there was nothing that we were hiding. It was like, even in person, those clothes looked as stunning as they do on camera. And sometimes you need that sort of diffusion of the lens to make something live. And in this case, I was just absolutely blown away every day by the work that everyone was doing. I was like, so the last thing is that I need to do a good job because everything else is perfect. Like, you could really, really believe in the environment. Yeah.
Kristen, you recently said that you've made maybe 5 good films out of like 50 or something. Oh, you're like, why did I say that? I can already see. But like, without saying which ones you were referring to or whatever, and obviously I'm sure that it was an exaggeration, how can you tell, like, have you guys been on movies where you do feel like, oh, this is going wrong, or this is not how I thought it was gonna be? And what do you do when you're in that situation?
Get really good at crossword puzzles. And just sort of, you have faith in the next one to revive your soul, and realize that you can't pick them all. No, I said that because I have a truly dorky and nerdy reverence for film. And when you talk about experience versus result, to be perfectly honest, I don't regret anything I've done creatively up until this point, because it's sort of made its way into my cellular being. It's who I am. But have I made that? I mean, have I been a part of more than 5 miracles? No, because I think a good movie is a miracle. I think it's definitely something that feels like it happens to you and happens to a group of people, and you kind of strike gold, and you have to thank the art gods for bringing you together. And that was all I was saying. And it's very clickbaity to be like, and not the question from you. I was obviously like, it's all over the internet, but I just mean like, it's to frame it that way is so, lame. It's not what I was saying. And so like, I also think it's pretty esoteric. Like, not many people feel this way about movies. We're here now, but the world at large, what do you mean 5 movies? Like, anyway, whatever, it doesn't matter. I think I was just talking about just how special it is when they're good. And also to even use words like good and bad and best when it comes to art is so diminutive and stupid anyway. So it was part of a larger conversation. And I guess, yeah, to answer your question and sort of move on, when you're on a movie that is not jiving and it doesn't feel cohesive, you kind of just have to, pluck the little clams and savor the moments and sort of, squeeze that sponge for your own personal whatever you're kind of coming towards that project for. But yeah, it's very clear when you're on something that you're like, this isn't going to be great. Okay, well, that's all good. I'll try again. I'll never stop trying. That's like, that's why we work all the time. Sort of, yeah. Please go on. Anyone else?
Has anyone been on a set where you were just like, why did I make this decision?
Yeah.
Yes. I really apologize that I'm so quiet, but I'm so fascinated listening to you all talk, because I feel like I'm learning so much about all of you and the way that you approach your craft and the way your personal lives are interwoven into everything you do. I feel like being vulnerable for a second and sharing that I feel like I am such a masochist when I work, and I am totally unhealthy and completely detached from real life, other than what I choose to put in my toolbox as an actor. And I'm really inspired listening to you speak, because I'm always thinking when the movie's over and I'm a bag of bones going home, that there has to be this other way for me to tell stories without abandoning myself. So I just wanted to, for what it's worth, I wanted to just thank you for all sharing those parts of yourself during this conversation, because I still feel like I have a lot to learn in that way. Just hearing the way that you are talking about your work, it's just really inspiring, because I don't create a safe environment when I work. I create a really unsafe environment for myself, and I chain smoke cigarettes, and I'm writing tons of notes, and I'm working on all sorts of sense memory and personification. And my therapist always tells me that I should try to work at 70% because I'm hurting myself. So thank you for sharing hearing about you being with your loved ones and the way that you're able to balance your lives. It's, I think, a really strong and really important message for a lot of people.
Well, Gaga, I just wanted to say that I think it's really cool that you were that honest about that you're still figuring out, how to get through taking on these roles and like balancing your professional life and your personal life. Especially because I think people look at you and think like Lady Gaga is the best at being a celebrity. Like she knows how to pull this off. Like you have a documentary, you share stuff about yourself, but like not too much, like I think people look to you and think like she knows how to do this, but you're saying, behind the scenes, you're really figuring it out.
Well, I went to acting school when I was really young, and I studied Lee Strasberg method and Stanislavski, which is what Lee Strasberg's derived from. I went to Circle on the Square. I did a lot of studying when I was young. I was really interested in method acting, and I think I just became a romantic, and so I have this romantic relationship with my characters and romantic relationship with the process of filmmaking.
I used to have a higher capacity to go there inside of environments that wasn't safe for like the whole crew. And I guess now I just feel really conscious of that. Like my personal safety feels tied to every single person on set in a way. And I think that's sort of what I mean in terms of what safety feels like, or kindness. Like I don't mind the sort of emotional brutality that is required sometimes. I think it's just the brutality of like the hours and looking around at the people that you're making something with and realizing that they are like losing it, and haven't seen their families. I think that feels like we can do better. We can surely figure that out.
Yeah, the emotional brutality is a really good way of putting it, because I don't know, I think being a little kid who, when I felt unsafe, and by the way, when I say little kid, I mean when I was like 20, 21, 22, not actually literally. And I think you have a tendency to protect yourself, even if you don't want to, when you feel a genuine sense of fear and anxiety that can kind of, be too overwhelming. I used to think so much like I need to hook myself up so badly or else it's not going to be real, or I need to like embed every personal memory, tie it to something in this character, do, kind of rip my hair out doing this. But then the thing is that I found that when I actually kind of chilled, stepped back and was like, when you don't have guards up, I don't know, I'm more present and honest, and then therefore more vulnerable. So it was like this reverse discovery where it's like, if I don't try and smash my face through a plate glass window, I might actually be able to like think of this scene, and you know what I mean? And then allow like whatever happens within my character's experience, which also is me. It's so hard to like tell the difference between the two once you actually get there. And also it's just not sustainable. You smoke that many cigarettes, you're going down. Like, can't do that.
No, you're not wrong.
Well, sometimes your emotions don't stop either. It's like, okay, just because you're supposed to yell at someone or you're crying, it's like whatever it is, like, and the take ends doesn't mean you have to go. You might have to find someone to like give you a hug, you know what I mean? Because it's just, you do use your own. It's just, for me, the helpful thing is to almost make it feel like, in a way, you're doing therapy between you and the character. And at the end of the day, maybe it can become something cathartic for yourself in your life, rather than something that, because of course you feel depleted after you make a movie. Movies are just depleting to make, but I think it's with each character. I don't know. I try, and even though you have to go to places that sometimes can be very painful, I feel like hopefully
it can help other people, because that's why we make these movies and stuff, or it can also be, yeah, cathartic for your own self, to overcome something inside of your own self.
I don't feel like what I was doing in my 20s or even my 30s. I was really believing that the more I suffer, the better the result will be. Knowing in my heart that it was not true, but I had to go through that process, and it was long. And since I had kids, that completely changed, because they gave me the strength to really, like, every hour that I'm there, every I don't know, hour that I'm not with them, I feel I'm here. So I go 100% into this fiction, and this dance from fiction to reality, allow myself to go in and out 100 times a day, 500 times a day. And in a weird way, it allows me to go deeper, because I can get out and get oxygen and feel safe, feel where I am and what my life is, and then go back again.
Thank you all so much for doing this from all of your respective homes, hotels, places. I really appreciate it. Hopefully we'll get to do it in person sometime in the future. And good luck with promoting all these movies. I know it's a lot, so I appreciate it. Thank you all for opening yourselves up today.
Thank you. Thank you, guys.
Remember to read the envelope coverage in the LA Times throughout award season. Thanks for joining us.
You've been watching Spectrum News 1 presents the LA Times Envelope Roundtable, brought to you by the Amazon original movie, Being the Ricardos, for awards consideration.